All right. Do you have your mic on, Ted?
I believe so.
Okay. Just for folks online, can you hear Ted okay? Thumbs up if you can hear Ted. Okay. Great. And Alice, if you could X out of that recording and transcription box. All right, we should be good to get started.
Okay. Call the December 18th, 2024 Clark County Clean Water Commission to order. First order of business is administrative actions. Roll call and introduction of new members. A pleasure to have all of our new members here this evening, online and in person.
Do we want to go down the list
Sure.
for a roll call? Tracy Travallo here. Or do you want to say maybe a little bit about yourself? We can do it less. Will you say a bit more about yourself, maybe?
Tracy, please introduce yourself.
Rather than doing a roll call, we'll go down the list. And if you could share a bit about maybe why you're interested in clean water, what brought you to the county, what brought you to the commission, if there's anything else you want to share about your work outside of the commission.
All right. I have a degree in horticulture and I am a tree hugger. My kids were born in Colorado and I was doing design work out there as a landscape architect. And then we became climate refugees and moved to the Pacific Northwest because of water availability. So that's why I'm here.
And Tracy, I was just going to
Clean Water Commission, obviously, and the Conservation District, and a big volunteer for Backyard Habitat Certification Program.
Tracy.
Over to our host.
I'd be happy to.
And John, is it Chatel or Chatel?
Chatel.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So, new member, John Chatel. I like to say recently retired, but it's been almost a year now. So, with the U.S. Forest Service, I have a degrees that kind of specialize in water, background in fisheries and hydrology. Was a fish biologist for the Forest Service for a long time before I moved to the regional office and became what's called the Threatened and Endangered Sensitive Species Program Manager. So I've always had kind of an interest in water quality, and was wanting to get more involved in the community, and, especially in the issues for the county. Glad to be here.
Thanks, John. Let's go online to Alejandra.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. My name's Alejandra Cortez. My pronouns are she, they. Yeah, I can share a little bit about my background. I have a degree in biology with a focus in ecology and evolution. I was a biologist for the Nevada Department of Wildlife, and then worked as a naturalist for Metro Regional Government for almost 7 years. And I now administer an environmental grant. I've been a resident here in Clark County for a couple years now, and water's life. I love to kayak and love to go out fishing at Climb Line Park, and just water matters a lot to me. So I'm just grateful to be here. So yeah.
We're glad to have you, Alejandra. I think Glenn DeWilly, our vice chair and reappointee, is absent. Glenn, are you online? Glenn may be popping in. I know that there was a chance he wouldn't be here, but I don't think we've heard. Have you chatted with Glenn at all?
Did he reply to the?
He replied that he would be available and to make today, but was not going to be able to do the day, the 10th or the 17th. He was last week. He was not available, but he would be available this week.
And I know he may be traveling. He mentioned there was a chance he may have to go to town on a whim. So Glenn was appointed in a position that was vacated that still had a year left. So we had him on board, and then he saw a reappointment, and Glenn has been a great contribution. So Glenn is joining now for his first official 3-year term. Ted.
Ted Gapey. I'm the current chair as of the middle of this year of the Clean Water Commission. This is my 3rd year on the commission, and prior to that, I spent a lot of time with the city of Vancouver as a city attorney. But after that, I got involved with water quality issues first, well, for years with Columbia Land Trust, and then did some legal work for them, and then with the Watershed Alliance of Southwest Washington on their board for many years, and Friends of Vancouver Lake in 2018, which I continued to serve as a board member and an advocate for cleaning up our beautiful lake. And then 3 years ago, appointed to a position on the commission. So,
We're glad you're here, Ted, our fearless chair. Up next, we have, you'll notice on the agenda, a vacant position. So some of you, I think Alice may have sent this out. Kate Perkins was on our commission for some time. Kate has a new young family and spends half of her time in Costa Rica and half of her time here. So she's been a little hard to join our meetings and has decided to step down. And we felt confident that we were able to fill that vacant position by asking an additional person from our recruitment to join. And we have Emily, who unfortunately they weren't able to officially appoint you in December, but will be appointed in January. So I know you've signed your letter.
Appointed, you just need to be.
You're appointed, you have to be confirmed. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Emily Hess, lived in Vancouver since 2010, and I have undergrad degree in chemistry and anthropology and work as a geologist for a consulting company here in Vancouver, Washington. And I live right close to Vancouver Lake and am members of the Vancouver Lake Sailing Club and like to get out there and kayak. So the symposium we did was really intriguing for me from a historical perspective and what's happening next perspective. And worked throughout Clark County, assisting municipal clients, private clients, doing a lot of assessment work and cleanup work.
Awesome. We're glad to have you on board. Next, we have Rudy Salacory, who doesn't appear that Rudy's online. Rudy, are you online? So Rudy is a new commissioner. I don't know if we received an email that he would be absent tonight, so I will follow up with him. But Rudy previously worked for the College Tribe for multiple years on habitat restoration projects, and then most recently worked for Friends of the Columbia River Gorge. But then now just took a new job. I believe he's representing or serving as a liaison between the Northwest Power Commission and tribes. So really interesting position that Rudy is in. And then we have Allison, another new commissioner. Welcome, Allison.
Hi, everyone. Allison Schweitzer. I'm a stormwater program project manager. I actually work for King County, so many counties up north, but it's a remote position. And my family and I moved down to Clark County a couple years ago. We now live in the city of Ridgefield and thrilled to be part of the Clean Water Commission. Wanted to connect more locally with some stormwater and water projects and programs down here. And so thrilled to be part of the commission. Good to meet you all.
Glad that you're here, Allison. And last but not least, we have Phil.
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm Phil Struck. I'm going to come up on a year on the commission. I'm a consultant at private practice and work primarily in the areas of stormwater management and habitat restoration and water quality.
Great. Happy to have you here, Phil. I think we got everybody. Hand it back to you, Ted.
okay, does that constitute our roll call as well? Okay, we're done with that. Our next order of business is to approve the meeting summaries or minutes for August 7th, 2024, and excuse me, October 9, 2024.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
They weren't here, so I don't know if they can.
Yes, we're actually under Robert rules of order, actually approved. You can second minutes even if you were not present. So
I second.
Okay.
moved and seconded to approve the minutes of August 7th, October 9th, 2024. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Our next order of business is public comments. Do we have any public comments to share this evening?
No public comments were received.
No one is
By-
online or by computer to engage with us?
Nothing was received by email. We do have, Emily is a member of the public as well as we have David DeChrist on, and I don't know if they have anything that they wanted to say as members of the public.
Okay. Dave, do you have anything you want to say? We just ask if you limit it to 3 minutes.
I would say the symposium was a great event. I learned a lot from that event. So the symposium was big thumbs up.
Thanks, we're glad you came. Much appreciated that you took the time to be there with us.
The next order of business is unfinished business, and first item of unfinished business is the 2024 Clark County Water Commission Work Plan Review and Annual Report.
So normally, in our December meetings, it's a time for us to reflect on what we achieved in the last year and to also begin to look ahead for 2025. And so last year, when we were preparing for 2024, the Clean Water Commission identified 4 priorities for your work plan. One was to build off of the success of the Lacamas Lake Symposium by hosting the Vancouver Lake Symposium. The second was to support the stormwater rate study, which we're going to provide an update on today. We also had a continued item to advance the Clean Water Commission code revision, which we have made some progress on through the stormwater rate study, since the code regarding the Clean Water Commission is written into our Clean Water Funding Code. And then finally, there was a goal to embed considerations for environmental justice and watershed health in all things that the Clean Water Commission does. And so for this part of the agenda, I'm happy to provide some updates now, but I would also like to hear from the commission what you thought, for those of you who've been on with us for the year, where you saw some of the highlights and successes, both for the commission and the Clean Water Division in the last year. Like to share?
Well, it was a very busy year, I would say, for the commission and obviously for the Clean Water Division of Public Works. I think first and foremost, the stormwater rate study and the eventual county council approval. Excuse me, I'm choking on a piece of the gingerbread here. Is there any water?
You want to go grab? Thanks.
You know, the bottom line is that you had an excellent outcome. Approval from, I think, members of the county council that I did not expect to see that kind of support. And that has now morphed into what I hope you can describe tonight as a very robust capital plan and ability to hire more staff, which are really, really needed in Water Division. The ability to meet the stormwater regulatory requirements as part of our permit, and a whole host of other things. So I'm hoping you can highlight one of those today, Devin, and let us know what kind of path we're on going forward. But that was, to me, the highlight of the whole year was essentially getting the county council's strong support for that significant increase in stormwater fees.
Thank you, Ted.
Yeah.
And if I could add to that, just for our new members, to get you up to speed. So the Clean Water Division, we're an enterprise-based fund, which means that the ratepayers pay for all of our operations and all of our activities. And the rates have not been updated since 2015. And the rates had only been updated once since 2000. So when I came into my position about 1.5 years ago, I was told that the first task was to increase the clean water fees because our expenses to continue operating all the infrastructure that is growing in the county have been surpassing our revenues, and we were facing a structural deficit where we would actually be in the negative and our expenses would surpass our revenues. And so over the last year, we went through a really intensive process to characterize all of our unmet needs and to define what it means to provide a high level of service, a medium level of service, and a low level or base level of service. And we had multiple engagements with the council, and we weren't sure what was going to happen, but this last year we successfully increased rates for the first time in 10 years, and council fully funded our program above just our requirements. So historically, the council has only supported the bare minimum, what's required by law. And for the first time in history, they have now allowed us to go above and beyond what's required to start implementing some proactive asset management activities and some additional watershed health benefits. So we have 62 new enhanced or improved services that we need to operationalize over the next 5 years. So we just had that approval. I believe it was on November 12th. So we're still kind of riding the celebration. We're 1 month post rate study approval now. And Ted alluded to it. We needed 3 out of 5 votes. And on the day of, I was feeling good about 2 of them and not sure about the third. But on the day of, one of our certain votes was absent. And so there were only 3 counselors present. And so we needed a unanimous vote from somebody who had, and one of those people that were there was a counselor who had already said it's a no from me. So I was really nervous going into it, and they approved it unanimously. Karen Bowerman, and Sue Marshall and Glenn Young. So historically, if you're new to this area or new to Clark County politics, it's been very difficult for the county to pass the 1% increase on property taxes each year. So we knew we had a big fight to fight, and they didn't even pass that this year. So for us to get such a substantial increase in our rate, to be able to grow our staff and improve our services in a time where multiple programs, potentially nationwide, are going to be cutting, we're in a very unique space when I feel very thankful and grateful that all of our team's hard work and dedication over the year has resulted in a positive outcome. So as a result of this, we'll be able to hire, I always feel nervous saying this number out loud, but I think there's almost 30 staff total across the county. We'll be able to begin to inspect all of the 500 miles of underground pipes that we have for the first time. We'll be rolling out a program to inspect the 1,600 dry wells or UICs that we have in the county for the first time. We'll be fixing 600 bioretention facilities. We're going to be doing an immense amount of work. And so the real hard work starts now. But it's also the fun part. So I just want to thank the commission, because your involvement and support and input throughout the process, through the survey, the letters of support, the work session with council, the participation in the bus tour, were all really key steps in the process to help us get the support from the council. And I'm really excited for the next 5 years. It really is a historical event, not just for the Clean Water Division, but for the entire county. We did it, Phil. We did it. Phil, I know, has worked on a few rate studies in the past, but at the beginning was very kind and offered his insight, because we wanted to hire a consultant. Normally consultants do this work. And so our first challenge was we weren't successful. Council did not allow us to hire a consultant. So we had to teach ourselves how to do a rate study. And not only did we do it, it was approved. And now we just hope that the assumptions we made about the revenue we need are right. Because it is really just a model. Like we modeled out our revenue needs. However, there's always unforeseen you know, you can't look into your crystal ball and know exactly what's going to happen over the next 5 years. But Phil, what do you think? We did it.
Well, I think a big kudos to you and your team. That was a big lift, and I'm sure it was a huge amount of work for you guys to take on in addition to the things you were already doing. But kind of obviously a big priority to make it happen, given where you are at with your reserves and you know the ever increasing NPDES permit requirements. So you know, it was, I have to say, I was a little surprised as well that the county council selected the alternative that they did. And I assume that was because of the good work you did and the fact that there wasn't a lot of opposition from the community to it. So great job across the board, Devin.
Thanks. And Phil alluded to it, but we presented them 3 rate options: a lowest rate, here's what you're going to get; a medium rate, you'll get a little bit more; and then here's the highest rate. And they chose the highest rate. So we're really very excited about the next 5 years. Are there any questions on the rate study? I could go through the 62 line items in detail, but as a follow-up, maybe we'll just have Alice send you the list of the services that we'll be providing, and then later on, ahead of your 2025 work plan development, I'll share a little bit about what we included for 2025 in the rate study and those initial early actions that we'll be focused on next year. Any questions?
What is the status of the capital budget now that you previewed for us before?
Our capital budget? That's a great question. So I can tell you what our entire budget is. I don't off the top of my head know what's capital versus operating, and I apologize for that. But our original, we have increased our total expected revenues over the next 5 years by $36.4 million. So approximately an additional $6 million in revenue each year. Currently, our annual budget is around $8 million that we bring in, and so we'll be increasing our program budget from around $8 million to $14 million. Again, of that, I don't know off the top of my head approximately how much of that is to implement capital projects versus to support staff and planning activities, but I can get you that as a follow-up.
Yeah, I think what I was really getting at was what effect did the approval of the increased rate have on your capital budget?
So again, I would have to tell the 36.4 million increase over 5 years is for capital and operating. And so the capital plan that the commission approved in at our last meeting in October when Jeff came, it did not include any capital projects that were incorporated into the rate study because we weren't sure. We intentionally didn't incorporate any additional capital projects in 2025 into that capital plan. So the commission will be seeing over the next 5 years new capital projects be added into that capital plan. The only thing that is new for this year is to begin the design process for Philbrook Farms, which is a HOA that currently has flooding issues in it's a planned unit development, so they put their stormwater facilities under a park, and the park is owned by the HOA and we own the stormwater facilities, and unfortunately that area floods, and the HOA has asked the county for multiple years to fix the issue. And so we're excited that with the passing of the rate study, the first thing we're going to do in 2025, the first RFP out the door is to hire design services to begin designing the solution for Philbrook Farms, but you won't see that capital expense come until 2026 because we're just planning to start the design process. So I can follow up with you though and let you know what our total of that $36.4 million, how much was capital. What I can tell you is that 75% is capital and maintenance and operations. The 25% was more for like planning activities and education and outreach. So most will go to either to installing new infrastructure or maintaining existing infrastructure.
You know, a question in terms of the inspection and maintenance. Is there a priority list based upon when it was done last?
It's a great question.
Is it based upon certain areas that have the most issues or water quality issues? You know, how do you determine where to go first?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And we're going to go through some of this in your new commissioner orientation. So
Okay.
what I will tell you is that we are required to inspect everything every year. So we inspect all of our assets, both we have approximately 2,000 public assets, and then we have 1,800 private facilities in the county. We inspect all of those each year. And then one of the outcomes of the rate study is to begin to develop a asset management program that enables us to start prioritizing assets based on age or criticality. We have requirements around timelines to fix things that are broken. So anything under $25,000, we have to fix within 6 months. Anything over $25,000, we have to program into our capital plan. So a lot of our major repairs get done through our capital plan process, which has a 6-year duration. So it's really only the small things that we have to fix immediately, or if there's a problem that's causing an illicit discharge of pollutants into a waterway. So a lot of that asset management work though, where we're going to be looking at condition of infrastructure, age of infrastructure, what's the type of soil, and where do we have hazard areas, a lot of that work will be built over the next 5 years.
Were you wondering about the pipes? Because you said you had 500 pipes, something you had expected.
That's a great question. So within our permit, we're only actually required to inspect the facilities. The conveyance pipes, the underground pipes don't have the same level of requirements. And so, but we're acknowledging that a lot of the pipes are reaching a point in their life where they need to be cleaned or they're going to start failing, and there could be risks to public health and safety. And so we'll be coming up with criteria to begin to prioritize areas, again, based on the slope, the stability of the soils, how old is the pipe, what material is it, so that we have a camera system, and we're actually hiring 3 dedicated pipe inspection staff who will begin this process to TV the pipes for the first time in history. And the unfortunate part about doing that is we don't know what we're going to find, but we have built some assumptions around the total. I believe we have budget right now to address 1% to 2% of the pipe system each year in capital repairs, because the cost is so significant. But part of the rate study is adaptive management, and we reserve the right to go to council at any time to adjust the rate. The minimum frequency will be on a 5-year cycle. But let's say we realize, hey, we have a big issue here, we need to adjust our rates. We reserve the right to do that at any point. But currently, we do know that about 300 of our facilities are over 30 years old. And for our pipe infrastructure, we really don't fully understand the full state or condition of our pipes, but we are going to start. And that was really, I think, a selling point for council when we explained to them that the work on cleaning pipes proactively and inspecting pipes proactively is a very good business practice, but it's not necessarily a regulated or required practice. I think they started to make the connection between what they've been supporting and that if they don't support things beyond what's required, they could be saying no to really good business practices. So I think they really saw the value in that investment. Any other questions about the rate study? I mean, we're going to keep working on the rate study and implementing it for the next 5 years. And so I think coming up with performance measures and controls, because we're also going to bring in so much revenue and be expending a lot more, we want to make sure that our assumptions were correct and that we're providing services to the level that we anticipated and that the public expects, and spending down our revenue at a rate that we predicted. And if we didn't, then we'll be needing to adjust and change our assumptions. And so fortunately, it's not just me making these decisions. We have a full team. We have a whole business services and finance department that works closely. Maybe sometime we can show you our back end budget tracking system and give you a peek into what we're building on the finance side too, because in the last year, the county also implemented a new system called Cartograph. So each individual asset that's inspected has like a cost center code attached to it. So if I'm out in the field looking at a pipe, I'm entering it into my iPad and they're actually able to like bill that person's time based on who owns the asset. So there's some really awesome controls. It's not just me signing checks. It isn't. And so happy to go into that at some point if the commission's ever interested in learning more about the financial side of clean water. Any questions, comments? Allison, can I ask, what's King County's rate? Do you know?
What's our? Oh, no, I don't remember.
That's
Double
okay.
digits, I think,
Double
but
digits. It's
yeah.
probably much higher than ours.
Yes. Always increasing, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for us, we need the money, right? But unfortunate for ratepayers.
Yes, it's hard, and we wanted to be very sensitive. There's a lot of competing costs out there. I think one of the great fortunes that we have on the timing of this is we expect that the council will have more requests from other departments who need funding next year. It'll be the first through the door, and I feel very fortunate on the timing because I think next year there'll be even harder decisions that have to be made by our council for like parks and roads and development fees. There's a lot of catching up to do. I do want to spend some time. Dave mentioned the Vancouver Lake Symposium. I don't know if we've met since the symposium and had a chance to really reflect.
No, I think our last meeting was October before the symposium.
Yeah. Would you, anyone want to share? Or do you want to share some words, Ted?
Well, I would first say that my great appreciation and compliments to both Alice and Devin for pulling this thing together. That's always a lot of work and seemed to go off very well organizationally. The food was more than we needed, but it was excellent lunches for everybody. I'm sure everyone enjoyed the meal. And I think it ran pretty flawlessly from a technological perspective. We didn't have any great problems with AV systems or sound, microphones. And so all that seemed to go off really well. In terms of the substance of it, a lot of really good information that was exchanged by a variety of groups. And that was the nice thing about it was a group, a dynamic of different perspectives from different organizations and different individuals, as well as all the regulatory agencies, state and local, and even federal to that matter. we had an introduction, a wonderful introduction from Tanya Engdahl, who is the spiritual leader of the Taoists, kind of set the tone for the symposium in a really nice way. And then we had Senator Cantwell's staff there to introduce support. The senator was going to send a letter, but unfortunately didn't get around to it in the middle of a campaign. But her representative was there, and we had Mayor Ann from the city of Vancouver give a really nice opening welcoming speech. Was the Water Resources Center of the city of Vancouver facility. So I thought it was really important to have her there. But the introductions were just a great start to the whole event because it sort of reflected on interest from federal to local about the lake. And then we had a series, like I said, of great presentations, good Q&A. The only thing I would say is that perhaps there wasn't enough time for Q&A and that we should build that into the next symposium in a little different format so that people can get more questions answered at the end of presentations. But overall, I think it was a success, close to 100 people, I think. Was it 85, 90? We finally ended up as the final tally.
I think in person there was 85 or 90, maybe 100 actually.
Maybe 100,
and then
yeah.
there was close to 100 in person, and then because I think there was 100 in group seating for 110 or 120.
Yeah.
And then I know we had a number online as well.
So we probably exceeded 100 with the people online easily. But, anyway, I thought it built on the Lacamas Lake Symposium from the previous year. Now going forward, we have to decide what are we going to do for 2025. And I hope we keep the tradition going and we pick a really good body of water or subject. We talked about maybe deviating from picking out a specific lake or stream or whatever and talking about some water quality issue as our primary focus. So that's something that this commission needs to be considering for 2025.
I saw Allison, you had your hand up online.
Yeah, my question was answered. I was curious about the total number of people, but I was also curious if there was any breakdown of affiliation of people that attended. If it was agency staff from different local municipalities, or if it was just more the general public. Did we get a sense of that?
Our target was focused on those who have decision-making or implementation ability. So it was primarily representatives from local, state, and federal government, as well as the tribal representative. And then we had representatives from nonprofit watershed groups, the conservation district. I'm sure we've had academia. Washington State University was there, Portland State University. Probably the ports were there. So I would say it was mainly focused on implementation and governance but we did have some members of the public, but a lot of those members of the public are also very much plugged in and engaged through like Friends of Vancouver Lake or the Lacamas Watershed Council. So very engaged members of the public. And I would also say from the recreational community standpoint, Vancouver Lake has a sailing club and a rowing club, and I'm probably missing sailing and rowing club. Is there another one? The dragon boats. The dragon boats were there, so we had a really strong recreational representation, as well as some private consultant firms. So I would say, did I miss anybody?
The historian.
The historian. We had the historical presentation on the lake. That was so fun.
100 years ago, we had the same issues, and here we are saying, what do we do?
Yeah. 100 years ago, they were trying to figure out what to do with the lake. It made me feel like, I don't know, what would the word be? Like we were standing and I'm struggling to find my words, but that
You're catching the can that's been kicked down the road.
exactly, or walking in the footsteps of those in the past as well, and still trying to solve this challenge.
I think one of the fascinating facts that Brad Richardson talked about during the historical presentation was in the 1920s, there was actually a very strong proposal that almost got approved to actually drain Vancouver Lake completely and turn it into an agricultural field. And it failed only at the last minute when
Wow.
there was a citizen uprising saying, no, we're not going to do that. But that was only 100 years ago. Lake could very well be long gone now. If it
Wow.
had not been for some citizen support to stop that.
And who knows where the lake would be today too without the continued community advocacy from Friends of Vancouver Lake, who has really been the group who is still continuing to work with our elected officials and helping secure the legislative proviso funding that has helped pay for this continued work.
Columbia Land Trust was interesting. I thought.
Who knew?
Wow.
Yeah, for those who weren't there, we learned a lot about waterfowl, and the Columbia Land Trust has a sandhill crane habitat restoration projects, and apparently cranes really like their crops, so they're managing it for crops for the cranes to land and eat. I had no idea. So cool. I loved it. Yeah, the cranes was really fascinating.
And that part was interesting to me too, to hear them advocate Columbia Land Trust that the sandhill cranes want shallow water because that's where they feed. And then the Friends of Vancouver Lake whoever was saying we need to increase the water depth. And it's like there's competing interests depending on what recreational use, habitat use. There's no easy solution to HABs. That was the acronym.
HABs, yeah, harmful algal blooms. I think you said it really well. I didn't know that there was that. I didn't know that cranes and birds like the shallows. You know, that was something I walked away. I was like, no wonder this is so tricky. Some people want it shallow, some people want it deep, some people want it for swimming and boating, others want it managed as a natural area. And it continues to be a really interesting project for us to work on. And so we'll have more Vancouver Lake work in 2025.
Columbia Land Trust offers tours of the Sandhill Crane conservation area when they're there, which is now, and they're really worth going to. I went to one last winter. Yeah, you can, if you go on the Columbia Land Trust website, they'll have a listing of when the tours are provided. And the interesting fact that they provided about these birds is they are extremely wary. And so when they first planted the corn crop in the field to attract them back to eat, they grew regular sized corn, which is like 5 or 6 feet high. Cranes hated it because they couldn't see if any of their enemies were sneaking up on them, and so they realized they needed to grow corn that was about this high. And once they did that, everybody was happy. The cranes were thriving. But they learned all of these things about these unique birds when they did the Crane Landing Conservation Project. The tour is just really eye-opening and very interesting. What's going on?
Okay.
I know I was impressed by just how much people are doing. I didn't know that there was that much going on, whether it's restoration or studies or the use. Yeah, noxious weeds.
Yeah, we're really excited, and Jeff Schnabel just submitted. Jeff is our capital. Well, he just got promoted actually, so he'll have a new title. I'm trying to still get it right. He was our stormwater infrastructure manager. Now he is our capital program asset management and monitoring manager. We got to come up with a better way to name that. But just submitted a grant application to ecology for the freshwater algae control and invasive species. And Friends of Vancouver Lake wrote a letter to do another milfoil treatment because there was a milfoil treatment done in the past, and we funded a resurveying of the lake, and they're finding that the milfoil is unfortunately coming back. And so we just applied for funding and hopefully we'll be successful to implement a treatment. One of the challenges is the total eligible funding available through that grant is not enough to cover the full cost of the treatment. So we still have some work and strategizing to do about how to cover the other, the total budget that would be needed. And we can talk more about that with Friends of Vancouver Lake in the tag, but we were just glad to get that grant application submitted. Anyone else want to share?
I'd love to share. Yeah. I was really grateful to get to participate and be present. It's really wonderful to kind of see like the different cogs and components that are working to, progress the ecosystem in that space. I will say the only things that I think it's important to reflect on things that maybe we can build differently in the future. I would really advocate for us to kind of take it a step further than, providing a land acknowledgement by including tribal members that have a history with land to be parts of the conversations, and then also to learn about history prior to colonization in space, I think is really critical. And I also would advocate, I understand that like the tone of these conversations is to have folks that are doing like active ecological work in these spaces, but I think community buy-in is really such a critical thing. So I'd also advocate that maybe in the future we consider inviting a broader spectrum of community members to be present, if even for just a portion of a symposium that we put on. And then, yeah, especially, community members that maybe haven't benefited yet from developing those relationships, but, deserve to have insight about the decisions that are taking place in their watersheds. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alejandra. I think that was really well said and aligns with the Commission's commitment to justice and watershed health and including more of our community in the conversation. I think this is especially important. You may recall back when we were beginning this work, our Commissioner Rudy Salacorey said, we need to be thinking about those who use the lake because it's the only place that they have to cool off. That was something I hadn't even thought of. Like Vancouver Lake, for some people, is the nearest water body for them to get in on a hot day. And maybe it feels more safe because it's shallow compared to the Columbia River, which can be very intimidating, especially if you don't know how to swim. And then in addition to that, we've been talking about a long-term revenue source for lake work, and one of the things being evaluated is a flood control district. And Fruit Valley is the neighborhood adjacent, which has is one of our more socioeconomically diverse and less disadvantaged economically communities. So it's something we need to constantly be thinking of, because we don't want to create unintended equity issues by having those who live near the lake who have to pay the full price for the long-term future of the lake. And so I appreciate you sharing those opportunities for us to continue this work and conversation, Alejandra. Oh, so there was a lot that happened in 2024. I would love to hear if anyone wants to share any additional successes or challenges that you observed in 2024. And then I think maybe we can hold our conversation about what's ahead for 2025 until we get into new actions around developing our priorities and work plans. But I would love to hear any thoughts. We only covered the rate study in the symposium. We had a bus tour.
Yeah, I was gonna say the bus tour was good, and having Commissioner on there. Had to have the whole fun, get excited about what we were seeing. I thought that was really nice that she was there.
Yeah,
that was a good opportunity.
Yeah, we heard, so Counselor Belcott, who will continue in her seat, came on the bus tour, and she's, I give these counselors, that have full-time jobs a lot of credit. Yeah. So she's, for her to spend a whole day with us was really remarkable. So for those of you who are new, we held a bus tour last year, and it was part of our rate study. We invited the commission, we invited the council, and then we also invited some key leadership staff. So like our director came, our attorney came, community development director came, and it was a really great day. And CVTV did a little clip on it as well. So we've heard now, Jeff was just out in the field with Counselor Young touring Heritage Farm earlier this week, and he was just still so thankful for that opportunity to talk with people and to get out in the field and see things. So I think it really had a big impact. And I would love, when we start talking about 2025, to hear the commission's thoughts on how we continue to provide opportunities. Maybe it's not a bus tour, but other tours or events where we can have that commingling between commissions and council.
Is that your first bus tour in a while, or do you do it annually?
First bus tour in a while. I think it was the first one where we brought commission and council and staff together.
It's the first time we've done a bus tour. We were doing annual field trips with the commission and our staff, clean water staff, and potentially some of the planting people. Julie, when she was in Lynn, we would go to different various properties and show the commission the things that were going on. But then the pandemic happened, things got put off to the side, and then last year the commission decided they would rather put on the LACMAS Watershed Symposium, instead of going on a field trip. So that was where the focus was. So this is the first time we've had a field trip and kind of an educational aspect for the commission, and then also Devin was really instrumental in making sure that the sixth floor and the council and leadership was able to attend as well.
So, little fun fact, I love bus tours. My first job out of grad school was to host a bus tour for elected officials. And so I've carried the spirit of bus tour. And even in college, they were like, I was always the one at new student orientation that they put on like the trolley tour. So I just think it's so fun. And so for me, it was like a personal delight. You know, I love doing it, but the timing of it was strategically placed in the middle of our rate study, because we knew if we got them on the bus, we wouldn't be letting them off the bus. We had 8 hours to talk to them and show them what we do. And so we really went very over the top. We had demos and roads and operations set up heavy equipment. It was really neat. There were little theatrics in the bus tour behind the scenes. But I know I heard Alejandra, sorry, I don't want to speak for you, but I recall that you said that as a new commissioner, it was a helpful part of your orientation. I don't know if you want to share anything there.
Yeah, I mean, it was so excellently put together. I feel like that's important to say. And I think that, there are a lot of aspects of the work that's being done that I feel like you kind of use your imagination to picture what's happening. You don't often get access to see these things. So I think to not only see, the infrastructure aspects, but then also getting to see the folks that are actually doing that work kind of gave you this holistic view about what's happening, and almost like humanized what is going on as well. So yeah, I thought it was excellent. I think if there's budget for it, I'd totally advocate for that to be an annual thing if it's possible. So
I'd say one of the things, because we throw out all these acronyms, we talked about different things we do, but we really tried. The first stop was a wetland restoration. The second stop was our operations center. So we put people in street sweepers and drove them around, and they got to drive the little pipe crawler and see fleet services and our Vector truck. And then we went to like a traditional stormwater project, and then we went and looked at underground infrastructure where they opened up a lid and you could just see these giant vaults filled with cartridges. I feel like there's probably another stop that I'm missing, but then we ended at Vancouver Lake. And so the whole kind of story we were telling is that everything we toured had an impact on protecting water quality in the lake. And so unfortunately, we were sad you couldn't be there, Ted. But I do think I would love to hear thoughts about, if not a bus tour this year, because we only took 2 counselors, and technically we should only have we have to make it an official public meeting if we have more than 2 counselors. So I think there could be benefit to think about how do we do this? How do we pay for this? And this year bring on our 2 new counselors since we have 2 people coming into their seats, or I know Counselor Marshall wasn't able to join. She was very interested, but
Well, I think, having your 2 new county council members, I think that's really important to bring them on and let them understand how valuable the service is, and so educating them right off the bat, I think would be a really, really good thing. Whether you do it through a bus tour or something else, and it's not that hard. You can have you could have the whole council on the bus. All you have to do is advertise it. I mean, it's not rocket science to do that. So, triggering more than 2 is not a big deal. It's just a matter of putting out the proper notices and getting the council out in the field. So
It certainly would be, I look forward to an orientation to get a better sense of what's going on, and thinking that you have a rate increase. People want to see what you do for the money, right? So it may be 2025 is too soon, but some year beyond that could be good at saying, hey, look, this is how we're using it, not only to protect water quality, but to make sure we're taking care of infrastructure before it gets more costly.
I think that's a great point. We'll be needing to tell our story to the council, the commission, the public about what we're doing with this additional revenue. Anyone else want to share? I know we're about at the 7 o'clock mark. We still have chair and vice chair elections, and then I'd like to walk through a bit about what's on our docket for 2025 and hear a bit about what your priorities may be as well. Anything else we want to reflect on from 2024, or are there any questions? I am interested in hearing a bit about where you thought we may have had challenges. There's an opportunity for improvement or continued work. Are there areas where folks think we could improve?
I was thinking the septic systems for the residents.
That's
Yeah.
a great comment. We can get into that a little bit more later, David. And because unfortunately, septic systems, we do have a connection to it, but septic systems are technically managed by another department. We have a relationship there, but I am interested in talking a bit more about what our strategy could be for and building that rapport with public health and how that relates to the Poop Smart Park program, or potentially a septic symposium in 2025, or a non-point symposium in 2025 was another thing I heard folks say. Great thought. Okay. If there's nothing else, we'll have a time to look ahead. And one of the things that Alice is going to talk about later is we do plan to send out a survey to get commission's feedback on your experience, on how the division's doing, where you'd like to see us improve. We can make that anonymous as well, because we know people have different preferences around how and where they share things, and we want to hear it all. Like, I have a commitment to improvement. If you think there are things I could do better, or that that we can do better to improve your experience in these meetings, or the work we do, we really want to hear it. So we'll follow up with that survey, and hopefully those of you who didn't share today can share more there. Back to you, Ted.
So our next order of business is the 2025 chair and vice chair elections. Let me just start off by saying that I was elected to the chair position in, I think, June of this year, so I've only served for 6 months. I'm willing to serve another year with the proviso that
That was kind of scary.
Yeah, well,
Let's assess what that was really quick. Sorry for those online. We just heard that funky noise outside.
That was really,
Like
really
something.
good.
I didn't like that.
Do you want the light off so you can see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounded like something fell or,
Yeah, I like that. But it had to be pretty big.
yeah, really big.
Okay, we could try that.
Maybe we call security or,
I'm sure they heard it.
and is everyone okay continuing or do we want us to
No, no, I think
investigate?
we're
Okay,
Okay.
just checking.
We're still.
I couldn't see because you turned the light back on.
Something big
The
fell
floor-
outside,
ground
you
floor of
think?
the garage. I couldn't see if I wanted
Oh, okay.
They sound like it came from the, over the crane yard.
Could have even been the port, yeah. or the
Yeah, I
crane.
mean, it sounded like something over the.
Yeah.
It sounded like it was that far.
It was
Sounded pretty
bellowing.
close, to be honest.
You know,
It
it's
did.
closer to me.
Yeah, I don't know what that would be. Fortunately, Crest is right there.
I'm
Let
sure
them
they're
take
getting
care
lots
of
of calls.
Okay, so back
Well,
to you,
before I
Ted.
was so rudely interrupted, I mentioned that I've been chair for 6 months. I'm willing to be chair for the 2025 year. However, I do want to say at that point, I would prefer that someone else step into a leadership role. And I think it's important to rotate leadership, particularly in a commission like this, so that everyone gets a chance to be in that position. Glenn is not here, and so I would say that I would nominate Glenn to be vice chair. I enjoyed working with him. I thought we worked well together. I know he's interested in the position. Obviously, it's not a good thing to nominate someone who's not present, but that happens frequently. I've experienced. However,
You didn't tell me no.
if there are others in the commission that wish to either be considered for vice chair or chair, then the floor is open for nominations at this point.
Well, I know I'm not seeking that out being my first meeting, but at some point it would be nice to know what the chair and vice chair does.
Well, I'll give you a quick overview.
Everything.
In addition to being responsible for chairing the meetings, we generally meet in advance of each bi-monthly meeting to talk about the agenda. And I interface with Alice and with Devin several times a month at a minimum. Things come up that require signatures and approvals, and it's not much of a time consumer, but there is that element to it. The chair and the vice chair are responsible for presenting the annual report to the county council. It's done every year. We did it last year in August, I believe, late August. That was very late. It's supposed to be done earlier in the year. Hope we can maybe move the timing up this year.
Agreed.
I think we are supposed to interface to some extent with the department head, although I really haven't with Ken.
I'm hoping they can come to a future meeting, and we just got a new deputy director as well.
And I think that's about it in terms of the responsibility.
I think you're selling yourself short, Ted. You've done a great job in writing, working on the letters of support. So some writing and some helping us understand, like with the rate study, it was really important for Ted and Glenn to express their concern about some of the revenue assumptions we made in buying down the rates. We ended up buying down rates using an additional revenue source. And I know the intent was not for the commission to hold up the rates, but to make it very clear that these are artificially low rates still. They would be much higher if we weren't buying them down with other revenue sources. So there's some policy, the chair and vice chair have been great at helping say some harder things and make recommendations where I didn't really have an option. We had to use that revenue. And although there could be consequences down the road, and Ted and Glenn really advocated for making sure that message was shared. And then Glenn was in a video, did an interview. Glenn shows up to a lot of events that we have as well, which is really nice. And then Ted did a lot of the invites for all the elected officials and coordination around the Vancouver Lake Symposium. So was more hands-on with making that day happen. So I think it's, kind of like build your own adventure. But I know I've heard Glenn specifically say he would love to see others get more involved in some of the subcommittee work, because I'd say that a lot of the stuff that's happened outside of these meetings has been really done by Ted and Glenn. No offense to anyone else on, but they've done the hard work. And we appreciate it.
Okay, with that, nominations are open on the floor for chair and vice chair for 2025.
I'd like to nominate Ted for chair.
So second,
Second.
and nomination for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Glenn.
We have a second.
I'll
Second.
second.
Okay, I think the proper procedure is to vote on each position separately. So we'll vote on the vice chair first. All those in favor of Glenda Will as vice chair for 2025, please acknowledge by saying aye.
Aye.
I
Opposed? Passes unanimously. All those in favor of myself serving as chair for 2025, signify by saying aye.
I
Aye.
Vote. And that motion passes as well. So we have a new vice chair and chair.
Yay!
Great.
Although I'm going to tell Glenn that he's the new chair.
Oh, he would probably don't freak him out with that. April Fools.
Okay, with that order of business handled, next business is to develop the 2025 priorities and work plan.
Yeah, so I can share a bit here. So some of the things I wanted to just offer as considerations for the commission are some of the things that we've incorporated into the rate study for 2025, just for you to think about, and whether or not you want that to be a commission priority. I would say you're not limited here. The commission can establish any priority you'd like to establish. And then we'll determine, we can talk a little bit about what that would mean, where there's alignment with staff and the direction that staff are working, and where there may be resource limitations. So what I can tell you is that one of my division priorities, and this is so exciting, is I get to hire 9 people in our division next year, just in clean water. So our priority for recruitment in Q1 is that we're hiring a new environmental operations specialist senior to focus on private stormwater facility inspections. So currently we only have 2, and we get to add a 3rd. So we'll go from having 1,800 or 2 people responsible for 1,800 facilities to 3 people responsible. So it will decrease their workload by 300 facilities each. Significant. So they'll go from having 900 each to 600 each, which is a lot of work still. But we're very excited we've been asking for this position for a long time, and we've been told no over and over again. And this position comes with a vehicle, and we were told by Fleet that we'll have the vehicle before the person starts, which is like a Clark County miracle. We're very excited about this. We are also recruiting for an engineering services manager 1 to be our monitoring and assessment program supervisor. So currently Jeff does our entire capital program and asset management, and also supervises our monitoring program. Too many people. So we've had somebody working out of class in this position for some time to provide staff with more middle management support. What we've been able to do is we've successfully gave Jeff a promotion to be able to bring in middle management under him so that he'll have less direct reports. And so we believe that this will help reduce Jeff's workload while also increasing the supervisory and mentoring and coaching experience that our staff have in the monitoring and assessment team. So we're really excited to have that person come on board in Q1. And these will all be competitive recruitments open to everyone. So if you know people, call. If you know people, tell them to apply. We're also hiring a dedicated program coordinator 2 that will serve as our grants and special projects program coordinator. So their job will be to seek out funding and to manage projects that are that were funded, and to work on new program development. And this was really exciting. We've never had this before. Everyone just applies for grants, and then if we get them, we manage them individually. This will help centralize and also ensure that we have somebody whose job is dedicated to seeking additional funds, which will help us with revenue recovery and continuing to have a healthy fund balance. Additionally, we're hiring a program manager 1 for education and outreach. So currently, Clark County's education and outreach for clean water has been done by 1 person, and that's Eric Lambert, and he's a rock star. Our vision is to increase the capacity of that team to 4 total. So we're going to start by hiring a senior level person to run the whole program, and then we'll be able to hire some more entry level education outreach tech under that position. Here are some others just to let you know. We are hiring somebody to work on mapping and inventory. Currently, every asset is mapped. Every stormwater asset that gets built in the county has to be mapped. The person that's been doing that has been here for 20 years and is hoping to retire in the next 5 to 6 years. So we want to get someone on board to cross train so that we can continue that mapping. We also, our permit manager has been our permit manager for the entire time that we've been permitted. He's not ready to retire yet, but we are moving him into more of a policy and staff coordination supervisory role, and hiring somebody to do a more entry level to do the permit coordination, and to really learn from him and absorb 30 years of policy. So part of this plan includes succession planning, because we have quite a few people retiring in the next 5 to 6 years. Jeff, Rod, Henry, Bob. We have at least 5 people who will be retiring, and out of 18 in the next 5 years.
Jeff is too young to retire.
No, Jeff's planning to retire in 5 to 6 years.
Really?
I'm terrified for that day. In addition, we're planning to hire a outreach technician, and then we'll be hiring under Jeff to add Jeff's more capacity. Right now, Jeff does all capital planning and asset management. So not only will Jeff have a monitoring supervisor, then we're also bringing in an engineering services manager 1 to lead all asset management. And then the vision for 26 is we'll add 2 public facility inspectors. We get a lakes and watershed coordinator, which is amazing. We've never had a position like this that's just able to do lakes and watershed planning. Right now, all of it's done by people who have other jobs, including myself. So I do all the lake stuff with Jeff. So this will be more of a geographic lake, a person dedicated more to like TMDL, non-NPDES related planning. We're also, right now, we only have 1 source control inspector that does all business pollution prevention activities in the county. That's Bob Patterson. We got funding to hire a 2nd source control inspector. So we'll be able to provide more response to environmental complaints and be able to double our pollution prevention and source control in 2025. So this will be my focus, is hiring all these people to continue to build our capacity. I will pause and take questions on those before I go into the others. Allison?
What's the difference between the M and R parentheses on there?
Oh, good question. So that's a relic of our rate study. So we had to identify positions that we determined were mandated and driven by permit requirements that we absolutely like. If we didn't get, we were going to face compliance issues. Versus recommended, those are like our number 2 priorities, where like we could probably continue to get by, but they weren't necessarily related to a permit requirement. Like for example, a lakes and watershed coordinator, we don't necessarily need that to be in compliance. We technically didn't need, we're not required to have an asset management program, additional capacity. Like we're in compliance with Jeff. This is just really to improve work-life balance and to help us operationalize some of our new programs.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. And if you see an A show up, that means additional. That was like, this is our Cadillac request or our cherry on top. Those were the top tier. And I don't know if we have any A positions. There might be 1 or 2. But this is the plan for just clean water in 2025. I will say that we also, most of our maintenance and operations is done by our roads team. And that's, I have an equivalent over there who runs that. His name's Josh Lipscomb. We had 8 positions approved over there. So we have 3 water quality crews. We're adding 3 water quality maintenance staff who will be out actually doing maintenance on facilities. We're hiring a whole pipe inspection crew to go out and start doing all the pipe inventorying and develop that program. We're hiring another street sweeper, and we are hiring a drywall inspector who will be operating a Vector truck and helping support some pipe cleaning and some catch basin cleaning, and also cleaning out dry wells, which are underground injection control wells that are regulated through the Safe Drinking Water Act, technically, that we use to manage stormwater. So we have those positions coming on board in 2025. But I would say these are just the 2025 positions. There are more. So it's going to be an interesting year, because with this comes like recruitment planning. We need to rebuild our office. We have to onboard everyone. So I think it's going to be a heavy growth year. And then making sure everyone is able to come on board and know what they're supposed to do. And so a lot of culture building as well. So I'm a little nervous. The division has hired 1 person since 2018, 1 additional staff. So it'll be interesting to add 9 to our team alone. Wish us luck. Bus tour.
I just want to say, Devin, that when you look at the county's general fund budget for the coming biennium, it's pretty bleak. And in fact, I don't believe that the county council authorized a single position under the general fund in the coming year or 2, versus what Devin has just laid out here, based on the increase in the stormwater fees. So it's really remarkable in this fiscal environment that we're able to do something like this versus what the county's doing overall.
It's unprecedented, and I've been told to be quiet, humble, and gracious, because there are potentially people who could lose their jobs if they're general funded. That can't be confirmed. I'm not confirming that, but there are risks to that fund. And so to have this much growth, we want to do it very carefully and slowly, and to really be adaptively managing too, and not just adding positions because we have the funding for it, but to be very thoughtful and make sure that we are balancing responsibilities and filling needs. But I can tell you that a lot of these positions, like our inspector positions, like we have 2 people working on 1,800 facilities each year, and they're not just responsible for inspecting them. The private ones, sometimes they have to go knock on a door, track down the HOA, talk to them about how to open up an HOA bank account, tell them what they need to do, help them hire a contractor. Like there's a lot of work they do. So it'll be a huge improvement. Any other questions about our new positions. It'll be really exciting. For those of you who know Bob Patterson too, expert in the state, going to retire in the next 5 to 6 years, to have somebody being able to train with him and work alongside him to free up his capacity too. I keep thinking about how we're going to be improving our customer service too, because there's probably a lot. If you've met somebody out in the community, they might tell you they're waiting on an email or phone call back from one of us because it's just, we're slammed. So I'm hoping it will enable us to be better, more responsive to the people we serve.
It might be too early to ask, but the qualifications for those jobs?
I know, Dave, that you're in the market. I would say that I would just keep watching our website, especially for, and they'll all be posted on our website. I know that all the ones I shared with you, especially the ones out in operations, are, those are going to be posted like right away in 2025. So if you're interested, definitely apply or reach out to Josh Lipscomb or Tim Wagner.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Want to speed through this so I have time for you guys to talk. Some of you are familiar that we're updating our stormwater code and manual. That will continue into 2025. We have OTAC on contract to do that. We also just put out an RFP and are in the selection process for our stormwater management action plan. We have $300,000 that we're going to be investing into a project to develop an enhanced maintenance plan focused on sediment removal for Lower Salmon Creek. So that will be done. We haven't selected anyone yet, but our goal is to have somebody under contract by March so that the commission will likely be hearing about that when we make our final selection. We also are still in the Vancouver Lake management planning process. We're planning for a TAG meeting, our technical advisor in January. That work needs to be done by June. And then we also just had an RFP go out for some design work on Suds Creek, which is a tributary, if you're familiar with the Salmon Creek Greenway, that goes into Turtle Pond. And so we'll be doing some restoration work out there. So that'll be happening. All this is also happening in 2025. I'm the lead with Rod Swanson on the code and manual, as well as the SMAP, the Stormwater Management Action Plan, as well as Vancouver Lake with Jeff Schnabel, and Jeff's leading the thing. As far as other RFPs, I mentioned Filbert Farms. This is the HOA with the facility that floods. This will be going out in January to hire a firm to do the repair on Filbert Farms. The duplication of Suds Creek. We also have another project called Cougar Creek, which is a really interesting project to restore a tributary, to do some repair and restoration and in-stream work on Cougar Creek, which is a major tributary to Salmon Creek. That'll be going out next year. Heritage Farm, that's our flagship wetland restoration. We're planning to start construction on that project at Heritage Farm, and that's a multi-million-dollar project. Bioretention maintenance, we currently have a firm under contract to be inventorying and assessing our maintenance needs for bioretention in the county. We have 600 facilities right now that we think need some level of maintenance or repair. So they're helping us develop a plan for doing that. And what's cool is there's a workforce development component. We've been working closely with Ecology to develop something called the Community-Based Public-Private Partnership, which is focused on how do we get more people working in like advanced vegetation management to be able to help create a workforce around bioretention and native vegetation for stormwater management. Because right now you have a lot of people who plant trees, but bioretention maintenance takes a certain skill set that it's hard to find. And our internal crews don't really love doing that work. So we're actually going to be partnering with the private sector and working to develop a workforce and training plan to build a market for this type of work, because we just can't find vendors and that can do the work. So these are all things that we have ahead of us in 2025, in addition to the hiring. And I also want to mention we're still supporting Poop Smart Clark. So for those who don't know Poop Smart Clark, that's our our work to provide inspections, maintenance, and repair of septic systems. So our team provides the monitoring and source identification work so that we can reach out to landowners so that the conservation district can provide them with financial assistance to fix their septic system. So that program is going to be implemented countywide, but we're doing investigation work in Lacamas watershed starting soon to target outreach efforts. Heritage Farm, I already mentioned that. I'm sorry. I mentioned the Vancouver Lake milfoil treatment earlier. We should know the outcome of that by February of 2025. Eric Lambert's also got a new nutrient reduction behavior change program focused on lawn care activities. Adopt a Drain program just started. For those familiar with Bob Patterson's work and pollution prevention technical assistance, we're in the process of reapplying. It's a contract, it's not a grant, with Ecology to do that work, where we go to small quantity generator businesses and provide them with technical assistance on how to store and dispose their waste. We're also in the process of doing an urban tree canopy assessment of our entire urban growth area. And then we'll be planting 1,000 trees in the Minnehaha neighborhood this spring. So stay tuned, there'll be volunteer opportunity. And then we have 2 capital grant applications that we submitted to Ecology for additional, and I'm probably not characterizing all of our capital plan, but these grant applications, and we'll know in January. So you can't tell, there's a lot going on. So I apologize if you've ever are waiting on an email or a phone call from us. But before I wrap up, the council priorities for clean water, we asked the council what do they care about, and we heard, they wanted to support the rate increase. We heard them say also they wanted us to focus on reducing watershed nutrient loading, working with public health on septic systems, and we also heard support for the Clean Water Commission to collaborate with other commissions like the Planning Commission, the Development Engineering and Advisory Board, or DEED, our Climate Advisory Board, and other county advisory boards. So these were some of the things that came up. But what I heard you all talk about was this interest in watershed health, non-point source pollution reduction, septic system. So those are some of the things I heard, but I really want to spend the rest of our time, it's about 7:30, hearing a bit more from commissioners on where you would like to focus your energy as a commission, whether that be specific tours or commissions you really want to collaborate with, or maybe it's relationship building, or maybe volunteer stewardship, or is it Vancouver Lake again? We're not quite done. So it's really up to you all to establish how you want to support the division. So I will pause and I will take any questions you might have before we kind of hand it over to you all to talk.
I would love to make a comment.
Yeah.
So as I was doing the volunteer training with Backyard Habitats, one of the things that Backyard Habitats doesn't do is anything over an acre. And I know, so it would be difficult to have the Backyard Habitat program precisely on over an acre because there's all these invasive species that you have to get rid of, which would be very difficult on a larger property. But you could have, people want that sign so badly. I cannot even tell you how much people want that sign. It's like they want that sign. There's something about that sign. So is there a way that we can, in coordination with Backyard Habitat, create a different category for larger properties? And then you're dealing with the nutrient management. You have more tree canopy. You have the plants going in. Because they have an incredible marketing plan already going. And so many people I talk to are like, oh, I'm going to get a bigger property next time, but they don't do bigger properties. Well, I think it would be great if we could do something like that. And I would be super excited to do as much as possible to help out with that.
I love that idea. I'm writing that down. And for those, we are a big funder of the Backyard Habitat program. So we do have the ability to drive what they do.
It would have to be a different category. It'd have to be, they'd have to call it something. And I even saw like your bottle, clean water starts with me. If you could make it something more like, not backyard habitat, but it's a different sign that is similar. Yeah, exactly.
Supporter.
Right.
And I apologize, my computer may die, folks, so I'll probably stop sharing I might stop sharing my screen and just anticipate for that, but I will stay online. I love that idea. I know we'll have to also talk a little bit between like there's a program at WSU, what's it called? Where they certify properties?
Small acreage.
Yeah,
They
but
certify it?
they used to have a certification program. It may have,
Do they have a sign?
I don't
I'm
know.
telling you.
Yeah, it may have died. So I wrote that down, focus on properties that are over an acre, to get habitat restoration.
And Phil has his hand up.
So currently, Dave, backyard habitat deal with properties up to an acre?
Correct.
Oh, they do, okay, so that, they do take on properties that large.
I love that idea. Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. I'm seeing that Phil, you have your hand up.
Yes. First, Devin, I'm just thrilled to see your work program and the results of the rate increase in action. And you've got, your plate got a lot bigger, and I'm sure you're going to be really busy. That recruiting and training and onboarding is going to be a huge deal. As I had some ideas about things that, the commission might, or my interests as I was getting ready for the meeting. But then after I saw your list, my perspective has changed a lot. And I was thinking about my first meeting with the commission a year ago, and it was all about the role of the commission and the code, and what is the commission doing, and what's kind of. And then I heard you mention that you looking for ways the commission can support the program, and the program is kind of under, and at least from my impression, is in transition. It's going to change a lot, and I'm wondering if the commission needs to kind of maybe take a look at the role and transition along with that, and what is it that the commission members and you as the leader of the department really kind of see as the things that the commission could really contribute to? Is it, individual project advocacy, or what is it? I just have to say I'm a little fuzzy about what is it that is my role, just to kind of provide feedback to you on things that you're doing, or are you looking for, people to step up more? Like, I think Ted has done a fantastic job with his symposiums and really made a difference. But I just want to just kind of put it out there that I'm a little fuzzy about what is it that really the county is wanting or looking for from the commission now that your program is evolving and changing a little bit. And I don't expect you to necessarily answer that tonight. Maybe it's an ongoing conversation, but I'll just kind of put that out there.
Thank you, Phil. I do really appreciate that. And I am still interested in hearing what your other ideas were. I think it's always helpful. And I froze, if you can't tell, my computer died, so I'm frozen on the screen. At least I'm not like allocated computer.
Unattractive with me.
Oh, what?
Oh, there we go. At least it's like it's not a terrible. What is going on there? I don't know. Sorry, it's all good. So to answer your question, Phil, so when I started, the commission was having a conversation about who are we, what do we do? Because the code, the intent of the commission, it was actually originally started to be the watchdog of the division. When we started collecting our fee revenue, the commission was established to advise and really on how the revenue gets spent, and to report to council, but to also help work on programs for landowners to potentially reduce their rates by implementing incentives on their property. So that's what the commission was born out of. And when I came on, there was a lot of discussion around, wait a second, that's not what the commission is doing. But because we were beginning a rate study, I really wanted to pause, because now that original intent of the commission and the way the code's written, there still is a big there is an opportunity there, or if the commission were to choose to play a role in adaptively managing and monitoring the rollout of this new rate study, and for tracking and really ensuring, is the division providing the services it said it would provide, and are they collecting the right amount of revenue? Are they expending it? I'm not necessarily saying that's how the commission should choose to function, but that's the way the code was originally written. And there was a big push to change the code right when I came on, and I politely said, let's pause. So the revision of the Clean Water Commission code is still on the table, and it needs to be done in conjunction with the final update of the Clean Water Funding chapter. We only updated one section, the rate table. We still have to update the rest of it. So I think you saying, Phil, what do we want to do? Do we want to advocate? Do we want to host events? Do we want to have a monitoring role? I'm open to different ideas, but depending on what you choose, it's kind of choose your own adventure, and how much work and how in the weeds and detailed the commission wants to be, because the commission currently has been speaking on behalf of our division's needs in the public and through the council. And I think that individual project advocacy is very helpful. But it's really up to you to decide what value can you add. And I do appreciate hearing how you think you can help support the division in the next 5 years. Or is there something we should be doing that we're not doing? I see your wheels turning. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard for me to completely answer that. I mean, this is the first meeting with understanding everything. My impression is that Phil, you said it well. How do we help support the work you already have planned? And if we come up with additional ideas, and I have some ideas to throw out, as you put it, choose your own adventure. I'm trying to understand what that means.
Mhm.
Does that mean person has an idea and therefore it's up to you to proceed with your adventure and garner support as much as you can? What I'm trying to say is, if we propose things that seem outside the scope of what you laid out, right, then how much does that add work?
Mhm.
And how and is that complementary to what you already have planned, or is it something that's important enough to say, you know what, even though you don't have it listed, collectively we think it's something that should be investigated, and we're willing to put some time and energy behind it?
I think it's the latter, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. I think if it's related to clean water, there likely is some sort of nexus with our program, and we can find that connection, and set boundaries and try to scope what's achievable, so we set ourselves up for success. I do appreciate, though, the mindfulness around what we already have on our plate, versus adding additional things to our plate. I will say, though, we will have more capacity in our staff coming on board. So I'm a dreamer, and I'd say if you think there's an opportunity, then I would want to hear about it, and then we can work together to determine what does meaningful progress mean, or what is the commission's expectations, or is it more a policy thing? Because there are some things that I can control, and there's some things where we'll need counsel, or if there's things if it's related to RCW, we have lobbyists and things like that. But I would be curious in hearing your thoughts about where you see opportunity.
Well, I'll say some of the things that I'll suggest and see how they resonate is based upon my experience, in my past agency. So when we do investments for restoration, it's very much place-based. So what places have the best remaining, say, fish habitat, have the best remaining water quality, have the best remaining watershed conditions. So you're trying to secure what you have. Doesn't necessarily mean we ignore everything else, because there's plenty of other opportunity out there. So I yet don't have a picture when I look at the county, where are those places that are most degraded and most in need of restoration. But it takes a lot of time and energy to get us in a place where we can make progress for securing the places that are maybe marginal or maybe pretty good. And you can gain a lot there by, with a small investment, securing what you have that's already functioning. So that's more of just mentally thinking out loud. But climate change is at the forefront. I think will affect all the approaches we are taking to restorations, and it may cause us to rethink some of the approaches we need to take to restoration. So I'm curious about what type of climate change assessment has happened for the county. How are people using it, if there is something in place? That could be a symposium idea. I'm really intrigued by the non-point solution pollution, and because that was always a really big driver in public lands. Let's say death by 1,000 cuts, right? So where can you go after or better understand to work with people to help minimize those increases, but you have to understand what they are and where they are. So.
Awesome. There's definitely connections there. The county was required, the Department of Commerce for the first time this year required all counties and cities planning under the Growth Management Act to complete a climate planning element. So we've been engaged in that process, and they've been putting together resiliency and mitigation and resiliency policies. However, that's another thing that's been on my plate. We are required now under permit to coordinate with that long range planning, and so that coordination with that coordination around climate and what is the role of stormwater and how are we planning for hydrologic changes or more drought, hydrologic changes, that's definitely relevant, as well as preservation. And so we're able to help acquire land and earn points in our stormwater capital program. So we paid for multiple land acquisitions, and so that's definitely something that is very relevant to our program.
Well, symposium, the one we had, I really liked it. Brought a diverse set of interests. Maybe more diversity is needed, but again, I was never aware all that was going on in the first place, right? Mm. So chances, I think, to get different parties interact, I would definitely be interested in this coming year and see what the topics are. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned climate. I think we have a county climate advisory group that could be a good mixer to. I haven't met the climate advisory group, but to bring you all together, that could be a good. And you have a friend on that. We could send that thinking.
Well, this is kind of ancient history now, but as a senior member of this group, and I've only been here for 2.5 years, so they call me the senior member.
Tenure.
When I joined the commission, the overarching debate was, and Devin was not here, we had a series of interim managers, one after the other, and we were kind of left without an anchor and without, as I joined, people were feeling like they really weren't connected to public works or the county. There was a lot of discord, and one of the major themes was, well, we're here just to essentially rubber stamp the municipal stormwater permit, and that's about it. And there was a group that said, no, we're here for a much broader purpose, because if you look at the language in the county code, it uses the term water quality. We're talking about surface waters as well as stormwater. And so we kind of glommed onto that and used that as a force to move forward and say, hey, we're going to look at water quality throughout the county. We're not going to be just the stormwater entity. And that has morphed into, I think, a really positive role for this body. But things have changed with the adoption of the new rates. And now I think, as both you and Philip said, it's time that we look again at stormwater as really an important function of this body, because now we're overseeing how are you going to spend those dollars on staffing, on capital projects, on operations. How are you going to wisely spend those new dollars? So I think our oversight function is still very, very much at play for this commission. But I don't want to also ignore, our other bodies of water in the county that are 303Ds. Most of them are in the urban area, for the worst, according to the state. And that's I think that continues to be an important role for this body to play, is the water quality throughout our county. So
I think that's good context, if I may. So part of the limitation of the program is that because of our lack of funding and our lack of political support, staff have only been able to focus on the bare minimum, which is compliance with what's in the permit. And so I think that I would commend the commission for really being that vision of like, let's move on just what's required. Like, we have X, Y, and Z. What about all of these other things we need to be doing that we know are really important for watershed health? Because we don't, and so I would say the commission was a big push in saying, hey, it's time for the Clean Water Division to move beyond compliance. And there are some people who believe our focus still should be compliance and only doing what we're required to do really well. But as I tried to demonstrate earlier, there's a lot of things that aren't required that we should be doing. And so I think that focus is definitely inherent in the rate study, because there is a lot that we just got to prove for the first time that we're going to be doing that's technically not required. And I think it'll be really important for us to continue to explain the value of those investments, because at any point, if things change financially, they could always reverse their decision, say, nope, we don't want you doing any of that stuff. You can only do what's required. And so we're kind of in this paradigm shift where we have some more flexibility on the nature-based investments that we make beyond just traditional stormwater capital work that's done to support road and development, more habitat work. I do want to, we have about 10 minutes left, and I know, Phil, you said you had a couple of other ideas that you didn't share. So I wanted to make sure we come back to you as well as give others a chance to maybe share your ideas.
Well, Devin, I appreciate that. I don't really have any specifics to share. I had thought about some general activities and support of the program, and mostly related to outreach to the community and getting more of the word out on why these projects are being done, and what are they designed to, what are the benefits that they're delivering to the environment and to the community. But I think that after seeing your list, you're well into that process with the hires that you're going to make. And so I feel like I'm going to maybe take a little bit of a step back and rethink things a little bit now that I have a little better context for kind of where things are headed with the program, about what things that I feel might be worthwhile things to pursue with the commission. I would echo what Ted said. I think that the kind of the sounding board role for us to sounding board back to you on things that you're proposing and doing is certainly kind of a central role of the commission. And then the other stuff about supporting initiatives or coming up with initiatives and kind of augmenting the things that you're doing is very important and worthwhile effort as well. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Thanks, Bill. Let's build some stormwater parks. Why
Yeah,
not?
exactly. Exactly.
Bill's designed a few stormwater parks. Allison, would love to hear from you.
Well, I was curious, and I feel like maybe I also heard Phil say this, but I'd be curious if there's anything that your team, Devin, is looking for support on from the commission. Like you're in this rapid growth of expansion right now. You've been doing the bare minimum with permit compliance just due to staff limitations. Like sounds like you guys have this huge opportunity for expansion. You have this team here of dedicated community members that want to be helping, but kind of to Phil's point, it's like we don't know where to maybe dive in. So if there's an opportunity there to provide feedback from your team to the commission, I would love to hear that. That's one thought. Also new to the commission, I don't feel like I have the wherewithal to say, you know, these are my top 3 ideas to bring necessarily, but in looking at the list from all the projects you guys are working on, the grants you've applied for, and then the priorities that the council has, I feel like my background, like in pollution identification and pollution prevention, and I work with our septic program up in King County, like I feel like I can support a lot of those projects, whether it's providing like technical expertise or ideas to contribute. Like I think there's like personal and professional interests in some of those ideas. I just don't know exactly where to like tap in necessarily to say like this could be a priority. So just want to voice that opportunity, I guess. But yeah, especially would just love to hear from your team on where there might be opportunity to collaborate more from the commission.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think, and I may need take that and for our next meeting in February, come back with maybe some more direction on where I think the commission's help is really a top priority for us. We have historically used like the subcommittee structure where we're meeting a smaller group. So I would encourage the commission too to think about what are those organizing themes. You know, we've heard you talk a little bit about, you know, pick works related to non-point. Pollution prevention is also can be related to non-point, so it's also point source. Just pollution prevention in general can also be considered non-point. So is that a theme that the commission wants to make a priority? Maybe we just have, and if it's non-point, are we including forestry in that, and riparian restoration that often gets lumped? Or do we want to really just talk about pollution prevention, and that can include nutrient reduction? And then nature-based solutions, which can be more focused on the urban forestry and the habitat restoration. Is there a team that's really interested in the capital projects and the asset management? Jeff will be rolling out a bioretention maintenance program and a pipe inspection program next year. Is there a team that really wants to lean in there? So I may encourage the council. And then there's the education and outreach, or storytelling, how we work with the greater community of Clark County. And so they can be high level priorities that each subgroup digs into with staff in more detail. So for like pollution prevention and non-point, we would have very specific folks depending on if you're talking about hazardous waste versus nutrient reduction. I'd be working with Eric Lambert versus working with Jeff Snobble if someone wants to dive into the bioretention. Reforestation, we do have a reforestation arm and a repair, and we do we've been doing some interesting work and studies on seeding practices and climate in our restoration projects. So I heard some good things today. I heard an interest in preservation and protecting the areas that are great, important, and still have high quality habitat and water. Climate change, I've heard a non-point come up again as well, or pollution prevention. Those are kind of the top 3 things I've heard. Nature-based solutions, backyard habitat, working on larger parcels, getting the public involved. Does anyone else want to add anything else?
Well, Dave brought up septic. I think that's sort of been a common denominator. We've been talking about exploring the whole septic problem in the watershed, and certainly ought to be an area of focus. I would encourage that we invite the Department of Health to come to one of our meetings and talk to us about what they're doing, what they aren't doing, what they need to be doing, and have a good, robust discussion.
Yeah, I would love to bring in public health and DOH to talk about where they're at. I know that they just had some new fees passed. So for the first time, council approved increasing, actually implementing like a past due inspection fee on property taxes for those who are really out of compliance. That's a first. So there's been a lot of really wild, awesome progress that's been made in the last year. So I think having the septic program come in and talk to us about what they're doing, where they're at in context with CoopSmart as well. But also hearing from Clark Regional and what they're doing around septic elimination and sewer extension, I think will be really interesting as well. So I think that we should have if it's not a commission meeting, a workshop or a symposium. I would hesitate to say we're having a septic symposium before talking to public health. They might get mad at me, but I think I'm happy to, if that becomes our focus, or if we just want to make it a higher level non-point symposium, for example, then I'm happy to help facilitate getting the right speakers there. Any other priorities? I haven't heard 6 PPDQ come up yet. That's a big one for me. Does everyone know what that is? The new forever chemical and tires. So I'm always part of our SMAP or our SMAP project in Lower Salmon Creek that we'll be working on next year. We've asked, a big focus is on sediment removal because tire particles bond to sediment. And so if we can remove the sediment, that's the best way to keep 6 PPDQ out of the environment. So we're also hoping to look at another thing I want to share with you all that is on my radar as a project is WashDOT just broadened. WashDOT used to have really strict requirements for what you could spend their stormwater rate money on, their fee revenue. So because of the administrative burden and the limitations and lack of flexibility about how we could spend that money, we haven't been collecting revenue from WashDOT for a very long time. WashDOT just expanded the scope of what we can spend that money on. So we're wanting to revisit if we should start collecting money from them again for more I-5, 205, SR 500 focused projects and what we could do for stormwater, especially around 6 PPDQ. So that's something as far as rate study continuing, I think we still want to be looking at how do we do more road projects, how do we partner with the state to manage 6 PPDQ. Allison, bye, Allison.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Happy first meeting. And then another high priority too is to continue to figure out, we don't know what's going to happen as these new higher rates roll out for ratepayers. We may determine that commercial properties just can't afford it, or apartment complexes can't afford it. And so I want to make sure that we're thinking about equity and incentives and ways to help reduce fees or help those who are economically disadvantaged if they're unable to pay their fees. Because the implications of not paying your clean water fees, it can have implications on your property ownership. And so I don't want us to lose sight of the rate study as a whole as well. So does anyone else want to share anything? I know we're right at 8 o'clock. And Alice, if you could keep before we close out unless you want me to try to summarize it, do you have much for your report today?
Mine will be quick.
Okay.
I'm working on the annual report, so we'll have that ready. I'll try to get that out to you in early mid. January so that you can review it and hopefully
Contribute.
contribute. It sounds like there isn't a clear decision yet on what you want to have for your approval, what you want for your strategic work plan for 2025. So we won't be able to vote on approving the annual report, the 2024 annual report at the February meeting. So it'll get kicked over to the April, which is part of the reason why we ended up we got bumped out so late for the review. And also with all the times that with the rate study going before council, it was difficult to meet. So I will get the review of 2024 out, so you'll be able to review it and look at it. And if there are items that you can get me that you're interested in, that way I can help try and synthesize and start working on getting ideas for I'm already planning out what all the agendas for 2025. I started working on that. And so if there are things in the past, one of the things that the commission had was they've had a couple different things where they've had meetings where we've had a speaker come in and you were educated about what the Clean Water Program was about, and like having Department of Health come in and different things like that. In fact, Devin came and spoke to our
In the past.
he was in ecology. And so and then we've also had where we had, but there wasn't enough time for people to there wasn't enough for the commission to do business. And so then we started consolidating them in special meeting in spring and in fall. And we would have 4 or 5 presentations in that time period and not a lot of business. And so it was more of an educational aspect. And in 23 and in 24, the fall one became the symposium. So something to keep in mind. I'm throwing out some ideas for you to be thinking about because there's so many new people on the new commissioner training. I am working on that. Please get back to me on your availability dates so I can get things scheduled. Devin's schedule is already very booked. So I'm trying to get that scheduled out so we can.
What's your time frame you're looking at?
Give me January through the day before the training, the February 7th. So I guess through the 6th.
And we can be
And we
flexible.
can be flexible on it. And we've had them after the first meeting, but I would really like to try and have it after, before.
So early January to February 6th.
Yeah.
That's what I'm-
Yeah, approximately. And if that doesn't work, then we can always.
We'll
Okay.
work it out. But so that's one of
Is
those.
it a day or?
It'll be just a half day,
Oh,
several
okay,
hours.
Okay. Thank you.
And we can do it either during the day, work hours, or in the evening. So that was one of the other emails that went out. So just get back to me on that, and it'll be just some of the key staff with the new commissioners. We, as Devin mentioned,
Did you see I don't know if I saw that email. So,
You got my response.
yeah, okay.
All good.
I'll make sure.
You'll get it. Well, you can resend it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll send it out again. To make sure, because I have a feeling you might not have gotten some of them.
And then the survey.
The survey, we're working on the Clean Water Division feedback, as Devin already mentioned, bringing up how we did this year, both as as your commission as well as staff, what we've done well and what we've done in the maintenance, the cleaning crew, and how we can opportunities for improvement and things that you would like to see. So I'll be sending that out here in the next couple weeks. And then miscellaneous updates. I will be sending out a number of things for the new commissioner coming up. And then I think Devin's already brought up most of the other items like Jeff getting a promotion and things like that. So, and
Yeah.
a new deputy director just starting. So
And if you have any questions, I'd actually too love to have one-on-one meetings with all the new commissioners. I did that with, I don't know if I did that with you, Tracy. Maybe,
Yeah.
well, we've had tea. But just to help answer any questions and bring you up to speed on anything, and we can just use that time together. So let me put a note to follow up and try to schedule that one-on-one meeting. And I would offer that to any commissioner, not even if you're not new and you just want to meet.
Well, something that both you said and Bill said in terms of supporting what I'll call the program of work that's already on there. I like that idea that maybe the rate plan lays out what those expectations were. So it'd be nice to get that, to look at it. And then as balancing those other opportunities, right? And seeing what the commission thinks about those. And I think collectively then we can come up with what our goals are for 25. But and yeah, I'll stay a little later so we can, as soon as I get some of the these numbers.
I think that's it. I just hope everyone has a happy holiday. I know it's 8 o'clock, so I'm sure people are wanting to get home.
Technically, I'm supposed to ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second,
In a second.
all those in favor?
Hey, I,
Meeting adjourned. Yes, meeting adjourned.
Happy holidays. Thank you
yeah,
all for
Merry
a
Christmas,
great
everybody.
year.
Okay, so long.
Happy
you.
holidays.
Everyone.
Bye. We are still recording. So we can
What a year. Oh, yeah.